done and needed someone to see the aftermath to feel something. There was nothing we could do. The cat was gone. It wasn't a kitten, but still young, maybe 7 months or so. I honestly don't remember what he ended up doing with the body. What I do remember was the awful feeling, the helplessness of knowing what happened, but being unable to prove it. Later that day, my father-in-law told me to be cautious. People like this guy, they can be dangerous, I agreed. From that point on, I kept my distance polite. But distant, I didn't want to provoke anything. His wife was nice, but kind of oblivious. We were all in our early 20s back then. I visited their home a couple times, and it was a complete mess. Trash everywhere, cigarette butts, fast food wrappers, clothes scattered all over. It was worse than any place I'd ever seen. Even the yard looked better than the inside. A few months later, they moved out and left the sidewalk completely covered in garbage. Not even bag, just dumped out in piles. The cleanup crew had a nightmare dealing with it. I never saw them again, never cared to look them up either. I genuinely believe something was wrong with them, especially him. I just hope he never harmed another person or animal. But honestly, that's probably just wishful thinking. There are some truly disturbing people out there. So please stay aware of your surroundings. Part 2, the creepy neighbor and the trailer incident. I was in the kitchen slicing carrots one afternoon. In front of me was a window, and just beyond it was a patch of grass about 3 meters wide, ending in a thick wall of bamboo that marked the border between our property and the neighbors. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a man's head popped up from beneath the window frame. I let out a scream. It felt like something straight out of a horror film. The way he just stared at me for that brief second before bolting was disturbing. My stepfather heard me shout and took off after him. He managed to catch the man. Once again, the same excuse. He claimed he was just checking on his sheep and the fence. My stepfather was furious, but I had to stay inside while it unfolded. The man promised it wouldn't happen again and claimed he was only inspecting the fencing for the animals. But what happened next was even worsened. It's something I'll never forget. At the time, my mum and stepfather had recently bought a small caravan and left it parked in the garden. I liked the idea of having my own space and asked if I could sleep in it instead of the main house. They agreed. Now my stepfather's bedroom is on the 2nd floor, and his window has a full view of the garden and the trailer. One morning, just as the sun was rising, probably around 6 or 7 a.m., he opened the blinds and saw our neighbor again. This time, he was standing there, staring straight through the trailer window, watching me sleep. My stepfather's initial reaction was to yell, and by the time he could get downstairs, the man had already fled like a rabbit. Later that day, after calming down and thinking it through, my stepfather made a decision. He marched up to the neighbor's house, found him in the garage, and gave a very clear warning. If you set 1 foot on our property again, I'll shoot you. The man never came back after that. But things got even stranger. He went into a rage and threatened to set himself on fire and burn the entire village down. Apparently, his father had done something similar in the past and had actually torched a part of their own farm. Before all this, I used to feel completely safe living in the countryside. I would often go for evening walks through nature, but now, the thought haunts me. How many nights had he been out there, hidden in the dark, watching me while I had no idea? Part 3, the man in the white truck. I live in a tiny town in Arizona, right in the middle of the Mojave Desert. It's dry, wide open, and honestly one of the most beautiful places I've ever known. When I was 15, I took my dog out for a walk one summer morning around 9 a.m. That's when I noticed a large beat-up white truck following me. At first, I thought maybe someone was new in town and just looking for directions. I stopped, expecting the driver to pull up next to me and ask something, but they didn't say anything. They just stopped and sat there in silence. I started getting uneasy, but I was on my street, so I figured I could make it home safely and call the police if it got worse. I kept walking while my dog, clueless and cheerful, was trotting beside me and sniffing around as usual. As soon as I reached my driveway, the truck suddenly accelerated and pulled up right next to me. The window rolled down, and a man with a scruffy brown beard and sunglasses leaned over from the driver's seat. "Hey, what are you doing?" he shouted. I replied, "I'm just walking my dog." He narrowed his eyes and asked, "Why so early?" "Because I don't want us to pass out from the heat later," I said. I had a bit of a sarcastic streak as a teenager, but I meant it. Temperatures in the Mojave can shoot up past 120 degrees Fahrenheit later in the day. Then he said, "Are you visiting someone?" That question threw me. "No," I replied, "I live here." I pointed to my house. He stared at me for a few seconds before saying, "Never seen you around here before." I answered, "We've lived here for about 10 years now." I started to feel a mix of discomfort and suspicion. Then he said something like, "Well, we like to keep an eye out for strange people around here." I replied, "Good for you." But this time, I wasn't being polite, I just wanted out of that conversation. I turned and walked up my driveway, checking over my shoulder. He was still watching. I pulled out my keys, unlocked the door, and took my dog inside, locking the door immediately behind me. My mom was already up, taking a break from working on the roof. I told her what happened, and she was furious. She grabbed a hammer and stormed out the front door, heading toward the street. But by then, the man was already gone. Not even 5 minutes later, our phone rang. We usually let the answering machine pick it up, but this time we had a strong feeling it wasn't just a coincidence. It started with a call from the local neighborhood watch. They said someone suspicious had been seen on our property. My mum immediately picked up the phone, hit the talk button, and unleashed her fury. She demanded to know why some stranger was trailing her 15-year-old daughter, using language that left no room for doubt. The man on the line stammered and claimed he was part of the neighborhood watch. My mum didn't buy it. She made it very clear, if anyone tried following her daughter again, she'd drag them out and knock their teeth out with a hammer. Now, normally my mum is sweet and cheerful, but when it comes to protecting her kids, she makes sure people understand that crossing the line is a terrible mistake. After hanging up, she called one of her close friends who was more or less in charge of the local watch group and explained what happened in a much calmer tone. Turns out, a new guy had recently moved into the area. He was extremely eager to join the neighborhood watch and acted like he was some kind of authority figure. He hadn't even been a member for a full month and already had 7 complaints against him. He likely saw me and assumed I was some kind of troublemaker. Not long after, he was kicked out of the group. I think there were more complaints after that, but I'm not entirely sure. Wherever that wannabe cop is now, I truly hope I never see him again. Growing up, our family lived just a house away from a man I'll refer to as Mr. Stan. His place sat at the top of a hill that slopes down toward a small lake, with a road curving into a cul-de-sac. Our house was in the middle of the hill, thankfully with another house between us and his. As a child, I didn't know all the details, but I always got an unsettling feeling when he was around. Anytime he saw us, his expression twisted like we gave off a bad smell. My parents made it very clear we were to avoid him if he ever invited us into his home. The answer was always no. I remember crossing the street whenever we walked past his house, just to be safe. But it wasn't until years later that I truly understood who he was. My mum filled in the gaps. Before we moved in, back in the late 70s or early 80s, Mr. Stan was already known for his drinking. Worse, he would allegedly go to a nearby family's home and assault their daughter while she babysat. She told her mum but wasn't believed. Mr. Stan worked as a corrections officer. Rumors later emerged that he and a colleague were abusing children of other officers. When the heat turned up, he threw his colleague under the bus to escape charges, costing him his job. He had 2 daughters. The older one claimed he abused her and she struggled mentally for years. The younger one denied any abuse and seemed to live a normal life. Shockingly, the older daughter's children later ended up living with Mr. Stan. Our next-door neighbor warned my parents about his past, which only confirmed their fears. At one point, Mr. Stan even offered to babysit my sister and me. My parents, understandably, refused. Around 2002, my dad spoke to a neighborhood girl, Lana, who casually mentioned she was going to Mr. Stan's house to give him a back massage. Alarms went off, he told her parents, but they brushed it off. When my sister started kindergarten and I was in 3rd grade, Mr. Stan's grandkids came to live with him. One of them was in my sister's class. My mum said it was heartbreaking to see such an innocent child every day, and suspect what might be happening behind closed doors. My parents debated whether to report him. Eventually, they did to my school principal. That led to home inspections and ultimately the children being removed. Somehow, word got out that it was my parents who made the report. From then on, Mr. Stan made life miserable. No more polite greetings. He would aim his car at my mum while she walked, scream at my dad, and cross the center line to scare us while driving. He told my dad he had ruined his life, that my mum wanted to move, but my dad stood firm. It took 3 years of searching before they finally left. It wasn't until we were in our new home in the countryside that I learned the full story. Eventually, more girls came forward, including Lana. Mr. Stan was charged again, and this time there was no escape. He faced trial. But before sentencing, he took a rifle and ended his life. A family who moved into Lana's old house heard the shot while walking their kids to school. Looking back, I realize how dark that neighborhood was. My childhood memories are mostly happy, but the danger was always there. I remember being afraid of Mr. Stan's house. It looked like a monster. I only went there once, on Halloween, with my parents at the bottom of the stairs. Mrs. Stan gave us candy and I caught a glimpse inside. Mr. Stan was in a chair watching TV, never even looking at us. That moment stuck with me. It shaped what I thought a bad man looked like. Now, I understand how brave my parents were. They protected us and made hard choices, and I'm so thankful for that. When my mum says every neighborhood has someone like that most of the time, we just don't know it, I believe her. When my parents divorced, I was 10 and my brother was 8. They split a property and started building 2 homes on it. While waiting, we lived in a small nearby apartment. At 15, my mum and I went to check on the unfinished house one evening and saw a man trying to climb the fence. My mum jumped out and yelled, asking what he was doing. He said he lived in the apartment next door and wanted to trim a tree branch hitting his window. My mum told him it was trespassing and that he should have asked first. He ran off, and we didn't talk about it again. Months later, we moved in. It was a beautiful house with big trees and room for our dogs. But we often heard a teen girl screaming from the apartment building next door. We assumed it was a typical teenage drama. Then a friend moved into that building and recognized the girl's voice, the daughter of the same man who tried to trespass. It creeped me out. One evening I was sitting outside with my dogs when I heard screaming. A woman fell from a balcony in the building. I called an ambulance. A man was taken by police, but I couldn't tell if it was him. Later, my friend and I saw the man with a gun on his balcony trying to shoot a lizard. We yelled at him to stop. He looked shocked, then went inside. Don't mean not to interact with him. I was 18, and things seemed calm. Until one afternoon, while walking my dog, he threw a rock at her. It hit her leg. I cursed at him and rushed home. Soon after, I found a stray cat at college. He followed me, slept on my lap, and I brought him home. He became our street-smart house cat. Everyone in the neighborhood loved him. Over time, we forgot about the creepy neighbor. But one night while we were away, my dad heard footsteps outside. He found nothing. When we returned, one of our oldest, most beautiful trees was dying. My dad found drilled holes in ETA method used to poison trees. He didn't tell my mum. Trees were why she bought the property. Eventually, my brother and I moved away. I left the cat with my mum because he loved the space. Days later, she visited me with heartbreaking news. My cat was dead. Someone had broken his neck and left him in front of the neighbor's building. He was alive when found, but died at the vet. We knew who did it. We just knew that my mum still lives there, with 5 indoor cats. That same man still lives next door. I see him often during visits. He walks by, always looking up at our house. I wish I could say I never saw him again, but I do. Almost every day.